Android, an operating system that runs on a Linux kernel, has 44% of the global OS market. Windows has 27%, which means Microsoft, the company that dominated personal computing for 3 decades, now controls barely a quarter of all the devices people use every day. So let's break down every major operating system and figure out what each one actually is. Windows, still the king of the desktop with roughly 70% market share on PCs and laptops. And it got there through one simple strategy. It runs on everything. Any hardware manufacturer can slap Windows on their machine and ship it. That openness created the largest software ecosystem on Earth. Every business application, every game, every niche professional tool was built for Windows first. Windows 11 finally overtook Windows 10 in 2025, but the transition was painful. Microsoft imposed strict hardware requirements, TPM 2.0, secure boot, specific CPU generations. That made millions of perfectly functional computers ineligible for the upgrade. With Windows 10 support ending, hundreds of millions of machines are technically orphaned. The thing is, Windows in 2026 feels heavier than ever. Telemetry, ads in the start menu, Copilot integration you didn't ask for, and update cycles that restart your computer at the worst possible moment. Windows works because it has to, not because anyone loves it. macOS. Apple's operating system, and it only runs on Apple hardware. That's the deal. You want macOS, you buy a Mac. No exceptions. And since Apple started making its own processors with the M-series chips in 2020, macOS has become the most polished desktop experience money can buy. The M4 chip uses a unified memory architecture where the CPU, GPU, and neural engine all share the same memory pool, which eliminates data transfer overhead and delivers insane performance per watt. A MacBook Air with an M4 chip lasts 18 hours on a single charge, while being completely silent because it has no fan. The problem? Price. The cheapest Mac starts where the most expensive Windows laptops end, and software compatibility is still an issue for specific industries: gaming, enterprise tools, and anything built exclusively for Windows. Desktop market share sits around 16% globally. Most people, including myself, think macOS is the best operating system trapped behind the most expensive hardware. Linux. The operating system that runs the entire internet and 100% of the world's top 500 supercomputers, but only about 4% of desktops. Linux is free, open source, and infinitely customizable. Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch, Debian, these are all distributions, which are basically flavors of Linux packaged with different software and philosophies. Ubuntu is the beginner-friendly one. Arch is the one you use when you want to build everything from scratch and tell everyone about it. Linux dominates servers because it's lightweight, stable, and costs nothing. Every website you visited today was almost certainly served from a Linux machine. AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, they all run on Linux. Gaming on Linux has improved dramatically thanks to Valve's Proton compatibility layer, which lets you run most Windows games on Linux through Steam. But driver support and application compatibility still lag behind. If you need to run Adobe Creative Suite or most enterprise software, Linux is a hard sell. Germany's state of Schleswig-Holstein recently announced it's replacing Microsoft tools with Linux in all public offices, which is either visionary or insane depending on who you ask. Android. The world's most popular operating system by total market share. Android runs on everything from $50 phones in developing countries to $2,000 folding flagships. It's based on the Linux kernel, which means it inherits Linux's stability and security foundations. Google gives Android away for free to hardware manufacturers, who then customize it with their own interfaces: Samsung's One UI, Xiaomi's MIUI, Pixel's stock Android. That fragmentation is both Android's greatest strength and biggest headache. Some phones get updates for 7 years. Others get abandoned after 1. Quick question: what version of Android is your phone running right now? Check and drop it in the comments. There's a solid chance it's already out of date. iOS. Apple's mobile operating system, running exclusively on iPhones. iOS controls about 28% of the global smartphone market, but it captures a wildly disproportionate share of app revenue and developer attention. Apple's walled garden approach means every iPhone gets software updates for at least 6 years, every app goes through Apple's review process, and the entire ecosystem is tightly integrated. iMessage, AirDrop, FaceTime, Handoff, these features work seamlessly because Apple controls both the hardware and the software. The trade-off is freedom. You can't sideload apps easily, you can't change default system behaviors, and you pay Apple's 30% cut on every in-app purchase. iOS is the most secure mobile OS precisely because it gives you the least control. Chrome OS, Google's lightweight operating system that's basically a web browser pretending to be an entire OS. Chromebooks run Chrome OS, and they dominate the education market because they're cheap, simple, and nearly impossible to break. A $200 Chromebook does email, Google Docs, YouTube, and web browsing just as well as a $1,500 laptop for 90% of students. Chrome OS also runs Android apps now, which expanded its functionality significantly. But try to do anything that requires local processing power, video editing, software development, gaming, and Chrome OS immediately shows its limitations. It's the perfect operating system for people who only need 20% of what a computer can do. Harmony OS, Huawei's answer to being banned from using Google services. When the US trade restrictions cut Huawei off from Android's Google ecosystem in 2019, they built their own OS from scratch. Harmony OS now captures about 5% of global smartphone shipments, almost entirely in China. It's a distributed operating system designed to work across phones, tablets, TVs, cars, and IoT devices seamlessly. Outside of China, it barely exists. Inside China, it's becoming the default. So the operating system landscape in 2026 is a three-way split. Android owns mobile, Windows owns the desktop, and Linux owns everything else. macOS and iOS are premium niches, Chrome OS is the budget niche, and Harmony OS is the geopolitical niche. Every CPU architecture explained is on the screen. Go watch it next.